welcome to the meeting for Watford Borough Council. For those who are watching by the live stream, my name is Councillor Dawn Allen Williamson. I'm the chairwoman of Watford Borough Council. Also present tonight is Mayor Peter and other councillors of Watford, unless apology has been received. I am supported by Donna Nolan, Chief Executive, Liam Hunsby, the Monitoring Officer, and Donna Doney, Chief Finance Officer, and other officers. I would like to remind all members to stand when they speak. If you wish to speak or when I ask, guys, I'm just going to ask for apology. Walking in and see this, it doesn't do me very well. But please bear with me. I would like to remind all members to stand when they speak. If you wish to speak or when I ask you to vote, please raise your hand, and so that the officers and I can see you clearly. We have very busy agenda, so please manage it. Only turn on your microphone when I invite you to speak. I need to advise that we are not expecting any prayer drill this evening. Therefore, if the alarm sounds, please follow the direction of the Democratic Service Manager and leave quickly. Apologies. Where was I? Possibly leave the building if you hear a fire and go to the exit to the pan where we will gather and check everyone around accountable for. Do not use the lift. If anyone has any difficulties, use the stairs or speak to the Democratic Service. Today is the Trade Fair annual anniversary. To celebrate the 30 years of the Trade Fair Town, I would like to invite Brian and his committee colleagues to come forward and join the mayor and me to cut the anniversary cake.
Peter, councillors, and ladies and gentlemen, we really want to make a vote of thanks to say thank you so much for the amazing support that Watford Borough Council has given to fair trade since we started in 2004. The Fair Trade Town campaign started then, and we have managed since 2007 to get status of Fair Trade Town, and we've managed to keep it going ever since. We have to renew again at the end of this year. Fair trade is really to do with the farmer producers. There are around 2 million individual farmers around the world, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. They are the ones who benefit from the fair trade system. And when we buy anything which has the fair trade mark on, this is just to remind you of the fair trade mark, then they get a guaranteed fair price for their produce. The actual logo stands for somebody, a farmer holding his hand up in triumph because he is getting a fair price for his goods. Then on top of that, the cooperatives in which the farmers are members, and they have to be members of a cooperative, they get a premium on top of the fair price for their produce. Then they are able to improve the infrastructure around their village or town or in the rural area where they live, and it just raises the whole standard of their lives. They are able to put food on their tables for their children. They can send their children to school. They can access healthcare, etc., etc. And it's all due to people looking for the fair trade mark when they buy products in the shops. Watford has got a lot of shops involved now who offer fair trade, but it is a matter of looking out for it. So thank you very much indeed for the support, the amazing support from the elected mayor, from Dorothy Thornhill when we first started, and Peter, now he's carried on, and the councillors who have been involved. Rabi has been involved since 2007. He was the chair on that night when we declared Watford as a fair trade town, and the lady from the Fair Trade Foundation, whose anniversary it is, the 30 years, she came and presented the certificate to Dorothy. The MP, Claire Ward, was there, and it was an extraordinary evening. So thank you very much for your continued support and for using fair trade. And if you can make people aware of fair trade when you're talking to them, that would be absolutely amazing. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Brian, for your wonderful speech. And thank you for holding the Fair Trade anniversary at that town hall. And we wish you all the best in continuing with your success. Apologies. I have got some apology here. Karen, Dr. Steve, Richard, and Sherlock. Any other apologies?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Disclosure of interest. Does any member have any interest to declare? No. The minutes. Do members agree that I signed the minutes of council held on the 28th of January as correct? Official announcement. Tonight, with sad regret, guys, that we lost our chairman, Norman, or Freeman Norman, that used to sit just over the corner with us. And he regularly attended the council with his wife, Mavis. He first became a councillor in 1961 and served served totally for 28 years, representing 5 different wards. He was great support of Fred Chair Watford, who have celebrated early this evening. He chaired the Friends of Watford Museum. In honor of his service, the council and the community over 60 years. You may have noticed when I came in to the meeting, the mast was with black ribbon. In addition, the borough flag will be flown at half-mast until the evening of his funeral. I would like to invite Peter to say a few words. He will be followed by Councillor Nigel, Councillor Asif, Councillor Robbie, and Councillor Tim.
Thank you, Dawn. And I think your reaction kind of shows how dearly we all felt about Norman. I was first elected in 2012, and I think that I can't remember a single full council where Norman and Mavis weren't present. He was someone who was very present at civic events that we held, but also just out and about in the town, that I would come across, would chat with him and Mavis at things like to do with the museum. He, of course, was set up the Friends of the hospital, but also his real passion for education, that when I was reading, I couldn't believe quite how many schools he'd been involved with. I think it was Garston Infants, Lee Farm, Chater, Hollywell, Lawrence Haynes, all of which he served as a chair of governor or a governor. He was someone, the Palace Theatre as well. And so it's entirely right that he got the freedom of the borough. There's only 20 people in the history of Watford who received the freedom of the borough, and it's totally right that he should receive that. So I know that all of us are thinking and praying for Mavis and their family, all of those who loved and were friends with Norman, because he was a remarkable person who clearly loved Watford very, very deeply and gave so much for our town.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Peter. As leader of Watford Council Labour Group, I would like to pay tribute to Norman Turwitt, who we now know, of course, sadly died after a short illness last Saturday morning. Norman had not only been a Labour councillor for 28 years, but his connection to Watford Council goes back over 60 years. And along with his wife Mavis, as has already been said, they were both freemen of the borough. Norman had been mayor twice over the years, and he was respected as a councillor, I think, across all political parties. The trust and respect that he invoked across the town and beyond stood out like a beacon for many years. It's not an exaggeration to state that Norman, along with Mavis, really did reach out to thousands of Watford residents with their exemplary public service in their charitable work. Most notably, of course, as it's already been said, for the Friends of Watford Hospital, the Museum, the Palace Theatre, and many other organisations. As a councillor, Norman had chaired the council, of course, and many important and influential committees, and members and residents realised Norman would always act in the right and proper and fair way. I and the Labour Group and the wider constituency Labour Party will miss his friendship and wise counsel that came from years of experience. I recall conversations where I needed to check issues and facts with him, and he always had the time and the patience to listen, and I will be forever grateful for that. At times when being a councillor and serving in an elected position can be more difficult in the area of social media and short-term criticism, Norman set the bar very high in showing how just doing the right thing and working hard creates its own respect. And if ever there was an exemplar of doing things for the public and social service, it was Norman. And obviously there will be time to say more, and obviously at the time comes up for his funeral, I'm sure there'll be other times. But I and my group send our heartfelt condolences obviously to his wife Mavis, their son and daughter, and wider family. Thank you, Chair.
For giving me this opportunity to speak about a dear friend of mine, actually a dear friend of the town. I'd like to give my condolences to Mavis, his wife, his family, his friends, and actually to the town itself. It was a loss to the town in particular. Norman, as many of you mentioned, exemplified public service. He was dedicated to it. And, irrespective of which political party, it was public service that mattered to Norman. Twice mayor and councillor for decades. He was one of the building blocks, I would say, of Watford. What Watford is today is based upon what both Norman and Mavis have done over the decades here. He was dedicated to the hospital, to the arts, to charities across the town. I remember once mentioning, I think, he even taught the likes of Michael Portillo in one of his periods. I said, well, Norman, that's one of the things I'll forgive you for, but just about as well. He was very generous. He was a generous man. He was very kind. And personally, he was someone I went to get advice from. He was, as I said, exemplified that. And unlike me being dressed like this today, and forgive me, there's a reason why I'm dressed like this. I rushed out forgetting my blazer. When I was the civic mayor, the chairman, he was the person to tell me, look, you're doing this not for yourself, you're doing it for everybody else. That's why you're doing this particular role. And you get that in your mind, Asa. So make sure you dress up properly, you wear your badge, you're wearing the civic badge, and let people look at it, use it, because why? It's for them. It's not about you. And that's something I learned from him. He was constantly dedicated to whatever he did. I will miss him. We'll all miss him, and it's a great loss for our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I do very much agree and endorse the kind comments from Peter, Nigel and Asif. Myself and my wife became firm and dear friends of Norman and Mavis, and they fortunately and regularly invited us to events in their lives, significant birthdays and wedding anniversaries. We were honoured to attend. I think that our friendship with them started when we together travelled to Wilmington, our twin town on the east coast of America, in 2005. We got on like a house on fire and shared many, many funny moments together on that trip and since. My first real memory, though, is earlier than that. Norman and Mavis, and it was at their civic reception in their term of office in 1996, during Norman's second term as Mayor of Watford. And I was just amazed how Norman and Mavis led the dancing with some excellent jive dance moves. I've not seen better. It was a total honour that I was chairman of the council in 2006 when both Norman and Mavis were made freemen of our borough at a ceremony in the Coliseum. It was then great to see them in the council chamber thereafter at full council meetings, sitting underneath their freemen of borough picture. And that's wonderful to see. Norman was involved and led so many great organisations and charities in Watford, too many to list really, but he led them with much grace and much intelligence. I was at the AGM of the Friends of Watford Museum last year, and Norman was the guest of honour and was the guest speaker, and he was speaking about his time as a Watford councillor all those decades. Norman was speaking for around 45 minutes about his time as councillor, regaling stories both serious and humorous. The audience was enthralled, and he did this, and I think this is absolutely amazing, completely without any notes. He was asked at the end, would he have done anything different over his many decades of public service? And of course, as Norman would, no. Norman was a totally committed, dedicated Watford public servant. I was going to highlight the fact about Michael Portillo, well done, Asif. But Norman and Mavis lived in Garston Drive. They bought the house adjacent to Norman's mother, and the houses were then adjoined. Now, not many people know this, but Norman then built, in the loft, a large model train set. We popped round there with our children to see this masterpiece. Many of us dream of having a large model train set, but Norman actually did it. Norman very much loved his garden, growing much, but particularly vegetables and fruit. And he very much endorsed organic recycled food waste as the compost. I know that Aga, just the other week, spoke to him whilst he was in hospital, and Norman was very much looking forward to get back into his garden this spring. It's so very sad this cannot be, but I'm sure that he already has a garden up there and is already tending it. There's no doubt, but we'll all miss Norman as a friend and as a dedicated, caring, leading member of our community here in Watford. Sincerely and lovingly, we send our condolences to Mavis, to their family and to their friends. Watford has lost one of its greats with the passing of Norman. Thank you, Chairman.
How do you follow that? I think all these tributes are absolutely some of what Norman deserves. He actually deserves a lot more. He was beyond politics. I think, as Tim says, Norman did what he did because he loved the people, he loved the country, he loved the Watford. He did not do it for any sense of glory of here's me, Lord Mayor, here's me, whatever. It was here's me, Norman. And that's how I remember Norman when I first got elected. I was one of the early Lib Dem members to get elected to a totally Labour-controlled 30 years of Labour, I think it was. So I was fairly new. And I got some hostility from some of your colleagues, you don't mind saying, but not Norman. Norman actually welcomed me and he said, welcome, I know you're the other party, but if we work together for the better of Watford, we will achieve what we all want. And that is actually what's, don't mind saying, Peter, that's what kept me going in terms of what I do for Watford and how I work. I'm in politics like Norman because of the community. And that I I take no credit for it. That's something Norman taught me. So I think today is indeed a sad day, but it's also a seminal day for Watford to remember that we produced some really amazing people. And I'm going to end with this little note that I picked up, which I think is very apt for Norman. There are some who bring a light so great to the world that even after they go, the light remains. Norman was one such person. Let's celebrate him.
Well done. Thank you. Like all colleagues, I wish to express my heartfelt sympathies and condolences to Mavis, to all of Norman's family, his friends, his colleagues, all of the many organisations that he worked with for many, many years in public service. Norman Tyrwhitt was a legend, true legend of this town. He was a true gentleman, a very kind-hearted, a generous individual, very much committed to our town. He and his wife showed great hospitality. I remember as a newly elected councillor in 2014, he and his wife used to do an annual hospitality event. Whilst I was at this event, I remember him approaching me. I was on my own. He approached me, and as Councillor Nigel Bell has said, he offered his wise words of wisdom, his guidance, and his support. And he said, if you ever wanted to come and talk to me as a newly elected councillor about what you should or should not be doing, how you can serve your community, just come and find me and speak to me. And that says volumes about who Norman was. He will truly be missed. Rest in peace, Norman Tyrwhitt. You're a legend of this town.
Thank you. I would like everyone to stand and join me for a minute silent in memory of Norman. Thank you. Related party transaction. Please can all those councillors who have not completed their related party transaction form return them to Liam as quickly as possible. Hard copies are available next to Liam this evening if you need to. Please do see Liam afterward if you haven't yet returned this. The deadline is approaching. Pre-election period vacancies. I would like to remind everyone that the pre-election period begins on the 21st of March. The monitoring officer has sent guidance on the pre-election period. In addition, I would like to mention that there are 2 vacancies following the resignation of Matt Tremaine and Chris Newstead. On behalf of the council, I would like to thank them both for their service as a councillor and wish them all the best for the future. Mayor's report. A report of the mayor is attached to the agenda. Please can you raise your hand now if you wish to ask a question of the mayor. I will then make a note of all your names. Okay, let me just call the names in case I miss anyone. Councillors Nigel Favor and Nazri. Anyone else? Have I missed anybody? Councillor Robbie. Okay, I think I have everyone now. So following the following members has wished to ask a question. So can I ask the Mayor to move his report?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just a couple of quick things to add since the report was written. The first is that last week some of us attended the AESI Awards, which is a prestigious council award, and I was delighted that Watford was announced as the Council of the Year, which is a fantastic achievement. And I would like to thank officers, members, our partners and everyone who's worked with us to achieve that result. I think I'm right in saying as well that this is the first full council since Councillor Stokesbury became a dad. So congratulations to Ian and Claire on the board for Carolina. And as ever, very happy to answer any questions at all from members.
Before we take the question, congratulations, my mate. Okay, so Councillor Nigel.
Yeah, Mayor, obviously you mentioned about the local government reorganisation. I'm sure we've all been thinking about that. Well, we didn't want to have to keep thinking about it, but I know tomorrow there's the group leaders meeting, group council leaders meeting tomorrow. So can you tell us what you'll be taking tomorrow?
Yeah, thanks for that, Nigel. I would say that we would like to be focusing on our residents rather than spending a lot of time talking about reorganisation. It is his government that's brought forward the legislation. I think that the priority must be about what is best in the interest of our residents and our businesses. So throughout those discussions, I've been saying, how can Watford make sure we've got a fantastic council, a new unitary council that serves our town and our region, to make sure we've got the growth, we've got the community services and everything else. So there's been lots and lots of discussions. The one thing that I'm clear about is the county council's position, where they're saying we should have a single county unitary for 1.2 million people, the biggest council in Europe. Urban, suburban is definitely not in our interest of any of our residents, and so we would be clearly opposing that. But working with our partners, I think one of the strengths in Hertfordshire is that we do work across parties. So that meeting tomorrow will have leaders from 4 different political parties working together to say, we've been set this criteria, the government are clear that change is happening, how can we make the best of it?
Yeah, thanks for that. And clearly, having talked to the leader of the county council today, one does get the feeling then that he accepts that there won't be a unitary, one county unitary, so fair enough. And clearly, the idea of looking at the 4 unitaries is now on the table, but I know there's 4 options on the table, so good luck with that. But I'm sure we'll all be working towards what we think is the best thing. Once we get that letter sent for the 21st of March, I suppose it's after the county elections are out of the way. We've got till, 29th of November, so I'm sure we can all work on that after that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel, for raising that. I think he is moving his position. I would say that it was Watford who kind of led the charge of uniting all 10 districts and boroughs in the county to say a single unitary. It's not a good idea. I would like to pay tribute to our chief executive, who's been doing a heck of a lot of work on this in the interest of our town. And just finally, he mentions the county council elections. We very much hope that there'll be a new leader of the county council in a few weeks' time, and it'll be a Liberal Democrat. The Liberal Democrat's the official opposition at County Hall. We've had 20 years of the Tories running the county council. I think if you look at the state of our roads, if you look at the provision for children with special educational needs, or our bus services, we can do a lot better. And so we need a new Liberal Democrat leader of the county council who will deal with the reorganisation, but also, more importantly, make sure residents get a far better service.
Thank you, Mayor Peter. Councillor Favour.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a question. First of all, I want to congratulate the person that has been successful for the CFO post, even though we're going to come to that. But I wanted to ask the mayor a quick question, because when I was reading the paperwork, he suggested that we went through his agency to appoint the potential CFO. I'm just wondering, in a time when budgets are so tight, what our thoughts are, why we're not considering growing our own rather than, picking up that extra bill of going through an agency.
Thank you, Favour, for raising the question. First of all, I'd like to pay tribute to Hannah for the great work that she's done in that role for many, many years. We've been very fortunate to have her. We wish her the best. We wish she wasn't going, but thank you, Hannah, for what you've done. It does really link back to the previous question from Nigel. At a time when council, Watford Council won't exist in a few years' time if the government, changes happen. And so that makes it a challenge to recruit people on permanent contracts. And so the important thing is to have people of a good calibre, and I'm pleased that that will be the case. But I think we've got to be realistic. At a time, Watford Council is right on the border of London. London boroughs aren't going through the changes, have the stability and potentially higher wages. So we've got to make sure that we have the best officers, which we do, but that's going to be a challenge in a time when there's local government reorganisation because of what that might mean for some members of staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Nasri?
Can the mayor tell me, as a Vicarage Ward councillor, not only what plans he has for the garages in Chester Road, but what other parking for hard-pressed Velcro owners in West Watford as the area becomes increasingly congested? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to discuss that issue with you. I know that you're a Chester Road resident, and we often, when we talk to residents, parking is probably the number one issue that's raised. I'm very happy to look into the issue that she's provided. I think we've got to be clear that in places like North Watford, West Watford, where we have terraced housing, there's always going to be pressure on parking. That we haven't got a magic wand and kind of can find a solution that means everyone can park on their street without any problems. I can see the right look on Councillor Short's face as we've looked. The key thing from my perspective is that our parking arrangements always reflect the wishes of residents. We explain to residents there are pros and cons of different approaches. We will work with them to deliver the schemes that they want. We have, of course, introduced more controls elsewhere. So if there are parking issues on Chester Road, I'm very happy to meet with you and to talk through those.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Robbie?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Ms. Mayor, as you know, we're going to discuss Ukraine in a minute. However, you probably know that the most, that two people, Luther Griffith and Lauren, have been supporting the Ukraine families and doing a lot of work for them for a long time. But two questions. One is, have we been engaging with them in terms of how the council provides its services? But there really is nobody else who understands the Ukraine situation as well as Lauren does, because she meets with the families week in, week out, every Wednesday, which is close to it. In that context, when you do ask to reach out with your question, can you look into this horrific thing that's going on where parents are not being able to get services? Particularly Ukrainian families are not able to get services.
Councillor Martin, time is up.
1 second, Chair. Are these fine?
Councillor Martin, your time is up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Abby, for the question. 100% agree with him about the fantastic work that Lauren and Luther have been doing. They haven't been doing it with a lot of fanfare every Wednesday with the Ukrainian group at St Mary's, as I know you've been involved with that as well, Rabbi, and I pay tribute to you for that. The point about working with the council, I know that on housing cases, Lauren works really closely with housing officers at the council. It's a challenging situation to find long-term, affordable, safe homes for everybody, as Councillor Pattinson well knows. But I do know that Lauren has been pleased with the approach of our officers here and working really closely with her. On the issue around fines for non-attendance of schools, I suspect that that's more of a national and county issue. If there are particular cases, really happy to work with Lauren and Luther on them. I'm in regular contact with them. And I think the good news is there was an event that some of us were at a few weeks ago where Luther was rushed to hospital and he is now in much better health, which I know we're all pleased about. So thanks for the question, and I'm very happy to continue working closely with them.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to say, Mayor? Question by member of the council. No written question has been received. Question from members of the public. No question have been received. Petitions. No petition have been received. Urgent business. I would like to invite the Chief Executive, Donna Nolan, to introduce an urgent report for the council to consider on the appointment of section 151.
Thank you. As has already been alluded to, Hannah Doney is leaving us very soon for a fantastic new opportunity elsewhere. Members will be aware that in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972, we have a requirement to arrange for the proper administration of the council's affairs, financial affairs, and in doing so must appoint a suitably qualified officer as a Section 151 officer and Chief Finance Officer. Interviews have taken place, and the proposal before Council this evening is that they appoint Isabel Britton as the Council's interim Section 151 officer. We are obviously exploring other options associated with that post, and we will bring further reports back to full Council in due course.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Kennedy to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Donna's already covered virtually everything I was going to say, so I'm not going to say much more. I think just would like to take this opportunity to say, after 3.5 years, Hannah Doney, our CFO, will be leaving Watford Borough Council at the end of March. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Hannah for all of her hard work and dedication, and would like to wish Hannah every success in her new role. In terms of appointing the new Section 151 officer, I was involved in that interview process, and I feel that Isabel Britton would be a very, very good and capable Section 151 officer. I ask Council to approve this appointment.
I understand you're seconding.
I'm seconding. So I agree, obviously, with Donna and Kennedy. A huge thank you to Hannah. We wish her well. We hope that Swindon do well, Hannah, but we've got no power over that, unfortunately. But I know you're a keen fan of theirs. And I would endorse Kennedy's point about Isabel, who's joining us. A heck of a lot of experience that she's got. So we're pleased that she'll be joining the team as well.
Thank you. Does any other members like to speak? Mark, I've noted you. So no. Anybody else? Anyone else? Councillors Mark, Nigel, and Asif. Have I missed anyone? Mark, can you go ahead, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I told my wife tonight I will be very silent in the back of. I didn't know you'd be in the back of the room, but I was going to be very silent. It would be totally remiss of me not to stand up here and say how much I thank Hannah for all that she did supporting me as the cabinet member for finance. Her knowledge was just encyclopedic. She was unruffable. She could just handle any challenge that might be thrown at her. And apart from anything else, we got on jolly well. So thank you so much, Hannah. I wish you every success in the future. And you made my life as a portfolio holder so much simpler than it might otherwise have been. I appreciate everything you did. Bye-bye.
Councillor Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And as a member of the appointments panel, I substituted for Councillor Dinza, and was happy to support the new appointment, the interim appointment. And yes, I'll also just add, obviously, at Finance Committee, I did pay tribute to Hannah. So I'll just add in again, like everyone else, that we've been very lucky at Watford to have such a good officer as Hannah. And when it comes to finance, and I think, I don't know if Mark used the word unruffled, but I think that's the perfect word to use. She was all very calm and I know exactly what was going on. And she did know exactly what was going on. And she's very good and very straight. So good luck at Southampton. And thanks for what you've done at Watford. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Asif.
Thank you. And I think much has been said. As chair of finance scrutiny, I've worked very closely with Hannah. She's got a right sense of humour, I think, as well. No, I think it's humour, but anyway, we never know. But it was great, and she helped with the alternative budgets and figuring out where we could have a go at the Liberals as well. And it was great to have a bit of that. I can say it now. She's going. All right. So no, thank you for all the work that you've done. I wish you very luck. Is it Southampton or is it? Yeah, Southampton. Yes. It's. our loss, their gain. I wish you very well, and I hope to work very well with the new Section 151 officer as well. So thank you for your service to Watford, and hopefully we can keep in contact someday as well. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Just to add to that, I mean, that's not on the agenda, but can we just give her a big round of applause for her service? Thank you. Does the council agree the recommendation set out in the urgent report that the effect from the 1st of April 2025 Ishbel Britton be appointed Chief Finance Officer, S151 Officer for Watford Borough Council? All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstain? I wouldn't think so. Thank you. This is the important part. Vice Chair of Watford Borough Council 25-26. A report from the Democratic Service Manager has been circulated with the agenda. I note there are 2 nominations for the role of Vice Chairman or Chairwoman. Councillors Sahel Bashir and Annalisa Barano, did I pronounce that right? And their statement are attached to the report. The first name council is Sahel Bashir. Please, can I call on the mayor to nominate Sahel, please?
Do I need to give a speech? I don't know if I'm meant to give a speech at this point, but I'm happy to nominate Sahel Bashir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I understand Councillor Asif, your second.
Yes, I'll second as well. I'll probably give a speech in May, isn't it? Oh,
Thank you.
rather.
Councillor Sahel, do you wish? Councillor Sahel, do you wish to say a few words like thank you?
Well, just simply that everybody should have my statement, which has been circulated, and it will be a great honour to serve as a vice chair of this council, and I ask for everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you. The second nomination is Councillor Annalisa. Please, can I call on Councillor Jenny to nominate her?
I nominate Councillor Annalisa.
Councillor Annalisa, would you love to say thank you? Oh, I apologize. Oh, Pen. Sorry. Would you like to second her?
Yes.
Or you change your mind? Which one?
You just skipped over me. No, I'm delighted to second for Annalisa.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Councillor Annalisa, would you like to say thank you?
You see my report, my statement. I hope that I can serve the town at my best. And as Hill said, I wish to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a procedure for electing the vice chair. Require a secret ballot. The Democratic Service Manager has provided all members with the ballot paper containing the 2 names and a pencil. Oh, I didn't realize that's what this was for. Please mark your preference candidate. Once you have voted, the Democratic Manager will then collect the ballot paper from you with the ballot box. Thank you. Please keep the order in the house as we voted, guys. Thank you. Sorry, she just jumped the mark there. Thank you all for your votes. We will now take a short break for 5 minutes while the monitoring office and the Democratic Service Manager note the number of votes for each candidate. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. I can now announce that the councillor received the most vote is Councillor Sahel. They are duly elected as a vice chair of Watford Borough Council for 2025-26.
Chair, well, very briefly, can I just firstly thank all my colleagues for showing me the confidence and supporting me, and can I offer my condolences commiserations, I should say, not quite condolences, commiserations to my colleague Annalisa. She would have been a wonderful chair, and hopefully you will have opportunity in the future if we still exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Off the agenda, but Annalisa, just to encourage you, just don't be downhearted. Keep trying. I didn't get it the first time either. So, yeah. Council tax policy. A report of the council tax of the head of revenues and benefit have been circulated with the agenda. I am invited Councillor Kennedy to move the recommendation. Councillor Kennedy, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I will take Council through changes to our council tax policy in relation to empty dwellings and second homes. In the current climate of shortages of accommodation, both locally and nationally, it is important that Council set their council tax policies to encourage all homeowners to ensure their properties are occupied and are used as their primary residence. A large part of the council tax legislation is mandatory on all building authorities within England. Discounts such as single persons discount, disregards and exemptions are set by statute with no discretion allowed. However, there are an increasing number of areas where each council may determine the type and level of charges to be made. And these include empty dwellings and second homes. Government, together with local authorities, have unfortunately seen a rise in the number of empty dwellings, together with the growth in second homes. Inconsistencies in the legislation have also identified whereby a premium can be avoided by the taxpayer merely furnishing an empty premise when it would become a second home, which currently has a maximum charge of 100%. With regards to empty dwellings, the proposal effective from 1st of April 2025 is to bring forward the period from 2 years to 1 year when an unoccupied and substantially unfurnished dwelling will be charged a premium of 100%. All other empty dwelling premiums remain unchanged, namely a premium of 200% where dwelling has remained empty for a period of 5 years or more, and a premium of 300% where dwellings have remained empty for a period of 10 years or more. The Council has adopted the maximum level of premium for empty properties. It should be noted that premiums are charged in addition to the 100% council tax payable on empty premises. With regards to second homes, effective from 1st of April 2026, it is proposed to charge a 100% premium on top of the 100% normal charge for any dwellings which are no one's sole or main residence and are substantially furnished. The introduction of a new premium, such as the second homes premium, requires the council gives 1 year's notice, and therefore the earliest that a second home premium can be introduced is the 1st of April 2026. Regulations have recently been implemented which prevent the council from applying a premium in certain circumstances. These exemptions are outlined in the report. The proposals outlined within this report are forecast to generate Watford Borough Council approximately an additional £36,000, and there will also be additional council tax generated, which relates to Herts County Council and the PPC. Nationally, empty homes contribute to the housing crisis. By strengthening the rules on empty homes, we are encouraging property owners to bring them back into use. In addition, the premium of second homes will hopefully encourage more premises to be used as main residence. I ask Council to approve this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Glenn, I understand you second.
That's correct. I'd like to second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak? Councillor Nigel. Anyone else? Anyone else? Councillor Nigel and Councillor Jenny, is that right? Okay, Councillor Nigel, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chairwoman. Yeah, I certainly wholeheartedly agree with this. I'd like to have been done before, but in line with government legislation, I think it's a good idea. And obviously, the question of the it may help on the housing crisis, it may not, but at least it's something I think is the right thing to do, and I think the majority of residents will support it. So yeah, support.
Thank you, Councillor Jenny.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Wholeheartedly support this proposal. Empty homes are, as Nigel says, unlikely to solve the national housing crisis, but they will give vital funding to councils who are struggling with temporary accommodation and higher costs of housing our homeless families through temporary accommodation. So wholeheartedly support this policy change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glenn, do you want to speak?
Nothing really to add other than that I also support the policy. I think it makes eminent common sense. So very glad to second it.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, you want to sum up?
I've got nothing more to add.
Thank you. Does the council agree the recommendation as printed as page 25, 26 of their agenda pack? All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstain? Thank you. The recommendation has been carried. Treasurer Management Midterm Review 24-25. A report of the Chief Finance Officers and Minute of Audit Committee have been circulated with agenda. I am inviting Councillor Kennedy to move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I plan to take the whole 7 minutes. I will take Council through the Treasury Management Midterm Review for 24-25. The SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management identifies 9 key risks that are inherent in Treasury Management activity, and these are detailed in the report. In the current macroeconomic environment, the 2 most high-profile risks remain interest rate risk and refinancing risk. The Council has appointed Arling Close as its Treasury advisors, and part of their service is to assist the Council to formulate a view on interest rates. The latest interest rate forecast set out Arling Close view that the base rate will fall over the year and then remain flat until the end of the forecast term. In terms of capital expenditure, the original budget was set at 42.45 million. The forecast in this report, when prepared, was 32.63 million. In the period 10 financial monitoring report, this has now been reduced to 27.267 million, and more details can be found in the period 10 report. With regard to the prudential indicator on net borrowing, the threshold is 91.55 million, and the internal borrowing position is forecast to be 75.55 million. Hence, we are 16 million within the threshold. It is a statutory duty for the Council to determine and keep under review the affordable borrowing limits. The Chief Financial Officer reports that no difficulties are envisaged for the current and future years in complying with these indicators. Due to the overall financial position and to reduce the risk of exposure of high short-term rates, during the period from April to September 2024, 32 million of short-term borrowing matured and was repaid. This reflects the strategy of maximising internal borrowing from available cash balances. The Council's external borrowing portfolio is detailed in Appendix 2. The Council currently has 15 million of long-term loans with the PWLB, which are loans over 12 months, and no short-term loans. The short-term borrowing repaid during 2024-25 was from the local to local authority market.
The use of the local-to-local market enables the council to take advantage of lower rates that are below the prevailing PWB rates. During 23-24, funds from the Croxley Business Park lease were invested with external fund with external fund managers were disinvested so that the council could utilise these funds to increase internal borrowing and reduce the council's exposure to short-term high interest rates. As a result of this strategy, it is not expected that further external borrowing will be undertaken until the last quarter of 24-25. In addition, the capital programme continues to be kept under regular review due to the effects of inflationary pressures, shortages of materials and labour. This includes reviewing the value for money of projects in light of high construction and borrowing costs, and considering the timing of projects to reduce exposure to high interest rates in the short term. Our borrowing strategy will, therefore, also be regularly reviewed and then revised, if necessary, to achieve optimum value and risk exposure in the long term. Officers have confirmed that the approved limits within the annual investment strategy have not been breached. The council has continued to limit exposure to banks and building societies, with the deposits limited to the council's bank, Lloyds, and the UK government through short-term investments with the Debt Management Office. Over the first 6 months of the year, the average interest rate earned on investments at 5.12% has been marginally higher than the average rate paid on borrowing at 4.74%. However, this is due to the longer-term nature of borrowing, benefit from rates achieved up to 18 months ago. Therefore, the council has continued to prioritise internal borrowing, using internal cash balances to offset the need to borrow in the short term and reduce future interest costs. I recommend this report to council.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Mark, Chair of Audit Committee, seconding. Would you like to speak? Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak? Okay, thank you. Mark, you sure you don't want to say anything? Councillor Kennedy, would you like to sum up?
I've got nothing more to add.
Okay, let's move on to the motion. We have 4 motions being apology. That's how. Should we vote on the recommendation, please? Anyone in favors? Well, that's carried. Don't need to ask anymore. Yeah. Thank you. That's been carried. You can see how keen I am on for the motion, guys. It's 4 motions. So we have received 4 motions under section rule 13.0. We will go through them in order as received by the Democratic Service Manager. I would remind all councillors that the removal of the motion has up to 7 minutes, with the right to reply up to 3 minutes. Anyone else has up to 5 minutes and may only speak once. First motion, Crime and Policing Bill. The motion has been proposed by Councillor Nigel and seconded by Councillor Asif. Details are contained in the agenda. I'll now invite Councillor Nigel to move the motion, please.
The government's flagship Crime and Policing Bill represents the biggest package of new laws on crime and policing for decades. The Crime and Policing Bill sits at the heart of the government's Safer Streets mission and plan for change, and it will help to tackle the crimes that matter most to communities that were ignored for the 14 years of the last government. These are a comprehensive set of measures to tackle antisocial behaviour, shop theft and street crime head-on, and giving police and our communities new powers to take back town centres from thugs and thieves. While our police are doing their best in Watford, the Labour government is making sure more powers to reinforce their good work are in place. How many of our Watford residents have had to put up with increasing antisocial behaviour over the last 14 years? The bill also includes important measures to address the most serious violence and highest harm offences such as knife crime, violence against women and girls, cybercrime, child sexual abuse and terrorism. And we welcome the respect orders promised in the Labour manifesto last year, which aim to deliver swift enforcement action against persistent antisocial behaviour offenders, especially as figures from the Home Office show that Hertfordshire Police Force delivered no penalty notices for disorder since 2019. Other measures to tackle violence against women and girls, such as creating new offences criminalising the taking or recording of intimate images or videos without consent or reasonable belief in consent, creating a new offence covering spiking and giving victims of stalking the right to know the identity of their perpetrator, alongside strengthening stalking protection orders, whilst issuing guidance to agencies on combating stalking. While a council like Watford can introduce the admirable white ribbon policy, as with other districts, it's only a government that can bring in other clear policies to help the real issues women and girls face going about their business. And the Labour government is introducing already measures to help, and we should, I'm sure, welcome these plans, and more will follow as time and resources allow. Now, I will accept the amendment that's been put forward. Councillor Stotsky gave me it, and I know there's a bit there where you say that it does not include domestic abuse aggravated offences. Fair enough, but I say, as I've already said, these other important offences and measures in the bill are a start. You know, we've only had 7 months, and I say the Labour government has committed to halve violence against women and girls in a decade. This bill is a start on making good on that promise, with leadership from a Home Secretary like Yvette Cooper, and of course a passionate and outspoken campaigner like Jez Phillips as the Minister for Safeguarding Against Violence Against Women and Girls. Jez and this government are doing as much as they can with all the other economic problems around us to make sure that the government speaks of one and make sure victims receive the vital protections they need. The scourge of knife crime has sadly spilled over from the London boroughs here into Watford, as I think we all know, and the 13,000 extra neighbourhood officers across the country to be recruited over the period, recruited with a named officer in every community, and including, of course, Ronan's Law, clamping down on the online sale of knives. Tougher action on creating a power to seize, retain and destroy bladed articles found on private property, increasing the maximum penalty for sale of dangerous weapons to under 18s, and creating a new criminal offence of possessing a bladed article with the intent to cause harm. And crucially, for our hard-pressed shop workers here in Watford, a new offence of assaulting a retail worker, giving workers in shops the protection they need. And removing the legislation which makes shop theft of and below £200 a summary-only offence. It's now sending a clear message that any level of shop theft will be taken seriously. So not just to help large retail shops, but even our corner shops, whether in Holywell, Meriden, Leggett or Woodside, as well as our high street. Police will be given stronger powers to tackle mobile phone thefts, no longer needing a warrant to search premises where stolen items have been electronically located, to help speed up investigations and increasing the chances of recovering stolen goods. Again, I'm sure many of us know residents who know the frustration of having mobile phones stolen with the loss of vital security information. I hope the council here, and I accept the Lib Dem amendment, will support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Asif, you'd like to second and speak?
I'd second the motion and reserve my right to speak a bit later in the debate.
Thank you. I'm aware there is an amendment. Who will first? Councillor Ian, you want to propose the amendment? I think Councillor Nigel has accepted it. So should we debate on it? Can we debate? Anyone else want to speak on it, really? Yes.
Just take this and yes, it's a substantive motion.
Okay, so, and Aga, you happy to second the amendment? And would you like to say anything? Okay. So, Councillor Ian, can you? Yes, so the motion becomes one, basically, because Councillor Bell accepts the motion. So would anyone like to speak on the motion? Go ahead. Oh, anyone else before Ian starts? Okay, so I got. So Ian first. Anyone else? Councillor Ian, Councillor Aga, Councillor Penn. Anyone else? Have I missed? Councillor Favour. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So we'll start with Councillor Ian.
Yeah, firstly, thanks very much for accepting the amendment. I'll just outline why we made some of the changes. One of the opening sentences, Labour confidently states that this new policy will make our streets safer. Well, we've adopted a may there simply because we come on to a point later about the resourcing. Policy is one thing, but making sure there's sufficient policing in place is also equally important. Councillor Bell mentioned 13,000 new officers by the end of this Parliament. Well, by my maths, that's barely one new officer per 5,500 people. So I'm not completely convinced that this government's taking it seriously. Hence, we wanted to put it to the May. I also just want to make a point of some of the offences that we'd like to welcome that are coming into this policing power. So more action on knife crime. I would stress Watford's still a very safe town, but of course, additional powers to the police there is very welcome. Indeed, criminal exploitation of children, indeed very, very important. And to continue to refine the laws on sexual offences is incredibly important too. What we think doesn't go far enough, or indeed isn't covered, so domestic abuse, we'd like to see domestic abuse be treated as an aggravated offence. At the moment, domestic abusers more often than not are treated through actual bodily harm or previous bodily harm or similar type of offences. So we would like to see that go further, and indeed that's being raised in Parliament by our members of Parliament. So in short, it doesn't go far enough, and please do look to the private members' bill by Josh Drabrende on that. Sewage dumping, it's a real blight. I've seen it myself in Watford's rivers. We do not have clean rivers across the country. We'd like to see a specific offence to dump sewage in our rivers. So we'd like to encourage that, and we've made mention of that rather recently. I would also note community policing. We've mentioned the additional officers. It was gutted under the previous Conservative administration. 4,500 officers were removed from community policing. So we need to take that into account when we consider the additional number of new officers coming forward. We do need to see proper resourcing for our police. What would we do? Well, I've mentioned domestic abuse. We'd like to see proper return of community policing, which would involve proper recruitment of more officers beyond the outline. And we've seen really successful examples up and down the country. Operation Hotspot is a really successful initiative, for example. Additional hours of 2,000 hours of police patrols, 10% reduction in crime as a result in December 24. So we welcome the body of this. What I will also just say is that also how these new powers implemented will be subject to review. Of course, we need to watch and make sure that policing by consent is still fundamental. But we agree with giving the police the powers, and then we need to make sure that all those powers are used appropriately. So thanks for bringing this motion. Thank you again for accepting the amendment. And we'll be looking to see how government gets on with implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Aga.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I wouldn't repeat myself. My colleague kindly highlighted the Operation Hotspot, which is really important. What the bill is telling us, it's important for everyone across the town, but also it's really crucial to say that the partnership between the local police forces and the council play a key role, and the joint effort of the community safety team with the police together can provide, and will do constantly, the great safest streets for our town. Just wanted to quickly highlight that because of the hotspots, we had a 60% of reduction of antisocial behaviour since we alongside with the police work on it, and it was May last year. We have 6% reduction in violence crime, 10% reduction overall crime, and is on and on. What my colleague said, which hasn't been added, but I'm really grateful for accepting our amendments, that the violence against women and girls is really important. And sitting on the Police and Crime Commissioner panel, I'm meeting with the Jonathan on Thursday again. I'm strongly lobbying on that. Had a few meetings with him already, and I know that it is his importance to bring this together and through the local community team, what we have across the town, like One YMCA and Watford Women's Centres, like other community places who are supporting women, provide that reassurance that alongside with the community safety team, we can provide that safety net for women and girls, but also all residents. And at this stage, I just would like to quickly thanks to our Watford Police forces and Chief Inspector who working tirelessly to provide the safe space for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penn.
Thank you. And I don't want to repeat what other people have said, but obviously it's all very good to hear everyone agreeing on those issues. I just want to say that we did actually recently have an e-scooter task group for open scrutiny at this council, and it's very positive to see that there's additional powers been included to seize illegally used e-scooters. When we spoke to residents, the illegal use of e-scooters was a real concern, so I think a lot of what the residents will be very heartened to hear that that's made its way into this bill.
Thank you, Councillor Penn. Councillor Favour.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that we welcome this bill by the Labour government. For too long, communities have had to put up with rising town centre and street crime, and Watford is not an exception, and persistent antisocial behaviour, while neighbourhood police have been cut. And for years, too little has been done to tackle the most serious violence of all, including, unfortunately, knife crime and violence against women and girls. I'm pleased to hear my colleague mention that she would like to see the implementation as it relates to violence against women and girls. And I want to quote the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and on this bill when she was introducing it. She says, for the last few years, our towns and cities have seen theft shoot up as organized gangs have been targeting mobile phones. But it is extremely frustrating for victims when they can see exactly where their stolen phones have gone, but nothing is done. This is why we are determined to give the police the powers they need to move fast to crack down on these crimes that are bringing down our communities. The bill will treat violence against women and girls as a national emergency it truly is, ensuring tougher enforcement, action against perpetrators, and better protections for victims. It will strengthen stalking protection orders, introduce new criminal offense covering spiking and bar registered sex offenders from changing their name where they continue to pose a threat. I think this is one of the biggest highlights I've seen in terms of tackling violence against women and girls. And I want to commend this bill, and I hope we support it.
Thank you. Councillor Sahel.
Yes, like all colleagues have spoken, I also very much welcome the bill and also support the amendment that my colleagues have proposed. I think it's fundamentally important issues that the amendment actually brings forward, and anything that protects victims and gives additional powers to police is very much welcome. I think the bill doesn't go so far as domestic abuse aggravated offences are concerned, and that's been mentioned within the amendment. But I want to speak from one fundamental point which at the moment has been missed. It's all very welcome that we have these bills that are coming forward with a view to protecting victims against violence and general crime. But the problem is that there has to be a sanction as to how you enforce the laws and how victims get justice. Now, I'm somebody who works in the justice system, and the justice system is creaking because of the lack of underfunding and resource issues. And what you have at the moment is crimes are being prosecuted by police, offenders are being caught, perpetrators are being brought to court, and victims are waiting for years and years for justice. And this is the point. So if you have a a woman or a girl who's a victim of sexual abuse or a violent offence, how many years is she going to be waiting for justice to be delivered in courts? There's a massive backlog in the court system. The Justice Secretary recognises that there's a chronic underfunding of the system. There's a huge backlog of Crown Court trials, I think 80,000 cases at the moment, and cases are now being listed for trial 3 years hence from the time when they're being prosecuted. That is the real issue. How do we address that? And if that is not addressed, how do victims get justice in respect of this matter? So I think that's the fundamental point, and it goes back to the point that Councillor Stotesbury rose about the resourcing. The resourcing has to be with the police, but also it has to be at the end place where justice has to be done and seen to be done for victims. And that's where the problem is. At the moment, Shibana Mahmood is releasing violent offenders once they've served 40% of their sentence, releasing them back into the community because there isn't enough space in prisons. And we're talking about more legislation being brought forward and giving justice to victims. Then that issue needs to be addressed, and that's not being addressed by the government at the moment with the underfunding of the justice systems.
Thank you, Councillor Sahel. Councillor Asif, do you want to speak?
No, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving this opportunity to second this motion. So I rise obviously in support of this motion because it's the safety and well-being of our residents must always be a top priority. Across Watford and Hertfordshire, we've seen growing concerns about antisocial behaviour, theft and public safety. What this bill does, it gives teeth to law enforcement when people were having despair and trying to complete and give funding of 14 years of chronic underfunding in our justice system. This is one of the first steps that this government is taking to do that. The Hertfordshire's seen a 6.2% increase in funding for its police following this government's recent budget. People deserve to feel safe in their homes, on our streets, in our parks, in our town centres, and this crime and policing bill brings forward sensible and necessary measures to help tackle these issues head on. One of the most significant proposals is a respect order, many of you mentioned, which will give police the power to take tougher action against repeat offenders. We all know from speaking with our residents, antisocial behaviour is one of their biggest concerns, whether it's vandalism, public disorder, intimidation, etc. within our local area. This is something which we get when we canvass. This measure will ensure that persistent troublemakers are not only held to account, but given the opportunity to address the root causes of their behaviour through addiction treatment and anger management programmes, as an example. In Watford, we also have complaints about dangerous and reckless use of off-road bikes and e-scooters. Councillor Hale mentioned that in her speech. In our parks, footpaths and residential streets, this bill will give police the power to seize them on the spot without warning. So that's an extra thing without the courts being involved. So it's extra teeth given. This is exactly the kind of enforcement action our communities have been calling for. Another vital part of the bill is protection of our shop workers. Now here in Watford, we've got a vibrant high street, but areas like St Albans Road, Queen's Road, Wickendale Road, and if Councillor Jatta was there, Piccadilly Road, as he is known as, or shopping areas like Atria. Now our retail workers and business owners should not have to face verbal or physical abuse while simply doing their job. Introducing a specific offence for assaulting shop workers will send a clear message to such behaviour won't be tolerated. The bill also includes new offences spiking drinks, and colleagues mentioned that, which is particularly important for a town like Watford. We've got vibrant nightlife. This is a crime that leaves victims feeling vulnerable, afraid, often with lasting trauma, but making it a distinct offence will ensure that those responsible are properly punished and the victims get the justice they deserve. Another key bill, a measure in the bill, is a power for judges to issue stalking prevention orders, even before the conviction is secured. So it's preemption here. And we have seen tragic consequences sad stories when stalking is not taken seriously enough, and this change will allow early intervention to protect victims before situations escalate. So early steps, Madam Chair. And finally, I welcome the move to require online retailers to report suspicious bulk sales of knives. I'm in, my role is I work with young people. I'm in education. I have been for the past 25 years now. And knife crime is rising, and the devastation that knife crime has on young people is it's unbelievable for them and for their families. Knife crime may not be prevalent in Hertfordshire as in some cities, but it can't be complacent. Early intervention is important. Madam Chair, to finish, these are practical, common sense measures that will directly benefit the people of Watford and Hertfordshire. They give police the powers they need, support victims, and to hold offenders accountable. That's why I fully support this motion. I urge my fellow councillors to do, for the sake of the residents, to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel, you want to sum up, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman. And a lot of people make some very good points. It has been mentioned, obviously, the severe backlog, unfortunately, that over the last 14 years and beyond. The Justice Secretary clearly should run on the move. She does know it's going to take long-term solutions, and that's what we obviously support her on that. But it's going to take time. I realise that. Councillor Duggan was talking about meeting the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that's good. I hope that he does. I'm sure he does take his role very seriously when it comes to violence against women and doing something on domestic abuse. I know that David Lloyd, his predecessor, I may have a lot of differences with him, but he did actually do quite a bit on this, and it's quite right that his successor follows up on that. As I say, these measures in this bill are just a start. And I say, and having someone like Jess Phillips as the minister, and she's already told me that there will be more to follow. So this is a good start. More to follow. I take note, obviously, of what you say about the points, the couple you've added, and I hope we can come back on that in the future. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. We're going to have a vote on the total motion as, should I say, Labour accept the amendment? So we vote. So we, pardon? Yes, let me finish. Hold on. So we're going to vote on the complete motion, as I'm going to repeat myself, as Labour accept the amendment. So can we vote, please? All in favour? Any abstain? Thank you. That motion has passed. Okay, we'll move on to the next motion. Sorry. Resided base voting rights. The second motion has been proposed by Councillor Gabriel and second by Councillor Annalisa. I now invite Councillor Gabriel to move the motion. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I stand before you today to present a motion that speaks to the very core of our democracy: fairness, representation, and inclusion. As councillors, we serve a community that is diverse, vibrant, and enriched by people from all backgrounds. Yet, under the current electoral rules, thousands of our residents, our neighbours, colleagues, and friends are denied the fundamental rights, the right to vote in local elections that shape their daily lives. What we know now is the Election Act 2022 has introduced significant changes to the voting system, some of which have created new barriers to democratic participation. Among these is the exclusion of EU citizens who arrived in UK after 1st of January 2021. Unless they are from countries with bilateral voting agreements like Portugal, Spain, Luxembourg, or Poland, this arbitrary division means that some EU citizens can vote while others cannot, creating an unequal system that undermines the principle of democratic fairness. We also know that the 2021 census data shows that 35.5% of Watford residents were born outside England. These individuals live, work, and contribute to our community, yet many of them are excluded from voting. According to the Migrant Project Democracy Project, over 1 million residents across England and Northern Ireland are unable to vote due to their nationality, despite paying taxes, supporting public services, and being integral members of our towns and cities. I believe this is a democratic deficit that must be addressed. The case for resident-based voting is that Scotland and Wales have already taken steps to extend the right to vote in local elections to all residents with lawful immigration status. The governments recognize that if you contribute to a community, you should have a say in how it is run. It is time for England and Northern Ireland to follow this example. According to a new research, in Watford alone, we have around 2,229 residents who cannot vote in local elections and over 12,000 residents who cannot vote in general elections. These are not just numbers. They represent real people whose voices are being left out of our democratic process. As a local authority, we cannot change national voting laws, but we can and must use our voice to advocate for a fairer system. That is why this motion proposed the following actions. Ask the elected mayor to write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, urging them to extend the franchise for all local elections to all lawful residents, just as Scotland and Wales have done. Ask the elected mayor to write to our local MP seeking their support in Parliament for this crucial change. Ensure councillors and officers are trained on the latest changes to voting rights so they can accurately inform and support our residents. Or collaboratively with voluntary sector organizations to raise awareness about voter eligibility, ensuring that residents are informed about their rights and how they can participate in the democratic process. Continue to provide clear information about voter registration and photo ID requirements through public events and council communications. In conclusion, what I want to finish with is democracy thrives when it is inclusive. If we truly believe in representation and fairness, we must take a stand against policies that exclude and marginalize sections of our community. Let us join the 18 local authorities across England that have already passed similar motion. Let us send a clear message that Watford stands for an open, fair and inclusive democracy. Let us ensure that everyone who calls this town home has a voice in shaping its future. I urge you all to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gabriel. Councillor Annalisa, understand your second. Would
I
you like
second the motion. I reserve my right to speak after the debate.
Thank you. Is anyone would like to amend? No? Who would like to speak on this motion? Put your hands up, please. Councillor Sahel. Councillor Ian, Councillor Sahel. Anyone else? So, okay. Anyone else? Councillor Nigel. Anyone else? Okay, we have 4 people. Should we start with Sahel? Councillor Sahel, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, and I commend and support this motion, and I thank my colleagues for bringing it forward. We've been very helpfully given statistics and data in this debate and also in the body of the motion, so I'm not going to be repeating that. But very commendably, many local authorities have taken the lead on this important issue and passed motions pressing government for electoral change. We are talking about people in our communities that many of us will know, probably have spoken to, who live and work here legally, who experience and are affected by policies we make, who at the moment are voiceless and disenfranchised from impacting or shaping such policies. The current system under the Elections Act 2022 seemingly which creates an unequal, unbalanced system of voting rights. Colleagues, the heart of the debate fundamentally relates to our core values and principles of democratic representation and community engagement. Foreign nationals who are legally settled in this country, including those from the EU, contribute vastly to the social and economic fabric of our town and our communities. In my view, granting them the opportunity to vote in local elections will ensure that the needs of these diverse people are represented and their contributions are acknowledged and recognised in local government decision-making, leading to more inclusive and engaging policies. Colleagues, giving voting rights to disenfranchised foreign nationals can, in my view, contribute to and foster a greater sense of belonging in our communities and ultimately encourage people to contribute greater civic participation in activities such as volunteering, community engagement, and thereby strengthening community ties and bonds. And on that basis, I commend this motion and I thank again my colleagues for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Sahel. Councillor Ian.
I'll be very quick because Sahel was incredibly eloquent. Just to say that was Gabriel's first motion proposed at council. I think he did an outstanding job, so well done, sir. I just want to really quickly say, we Liberal Democrats love talking about electoral reform in all of its beautiful varieties, but this is really just a fundamental thing about fairness. If you work here, you pay taxes here, you should have a right in how the town spends your money and delivers your services. We also speak in this council often about how sometimes we're struggling to reach part of the community with our provisions, with our consultations, and try to making sure that we reach out to those people. I can't think of a better way than making sure they have part of the franchise, so they're here and involved in our discussion. So I completely commend this. This is about how do people vote locally, but I'd also like to see that conversation raised up nationally, and that's also what this motion's doing. It's giving voice to those people to take forward in Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Argo.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm really pleased to debate this motion tonight. What I can say, it's such important. It's a privilege to be here myself with the Polish heritage. It's a privilege to serve the town. It's a privilege to speak with the residents. But at the same time, it's such sad thing when the residents would like to participate in such a democratic way like voting, and they can't. And I'm so glad that this motion has been brought in tonight because, as my previous colleague said, the integrity and unity is most important when we're shaping the community. And one thing, what is our strength, is our community, and that's what we own them. So I urge everyone to vote and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Aga. Councillor Nigel.
Just briefly, just like to congratulate the council for bringing this motion here. And clearly, I know the government is looking at the changes, obviously what happened from 2021, and also the other with the Elections Act 2022. So it will take time. And I say well done for bringing it. And obviously, it's something that I think it will change in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Gabriel, would you like to sum up? Oh, Annalise, you haven't spoken up here.
I seconded this crucial motion because, as myself, as being Italian, I would like to have all the right to vote, everybody, extended to everyone who calls Watford home. This motion is not about voting rights, it's about recognizing the valuable contribution of each resident in Watford. It is important to value our residents, regardless of place of birth. Thanks to the immense contribution to this town, they enrich, they work here, they study, they take part of the community servicing and enrich our community. It's only fair to have they have the say of what happened in the town. It is now time for England and Northern Ireland to follow Scotland and Wales to the progressive steps of granting residence-based voting rights to all local residents. By extending these rights, we can ensure that the resident will feel valued and heard. This motion also addresses the perplexity and inequality caused by the current criteria of the vote eligibility. It is unfair, for instance, that EU citizens would join, as Gabriel said. After 2021, they have no right to vote or be candidates unless they are part of the country who signed the bilateral voting treaties. This inconsistency undermines the principle of fairness, equality, and democracy. We are taking a stand supporting this motion for inclusivity and democracy. We are sending a clear message to every resident that as they have voice in our town. It's now time to be united and raise the eligibility awareness, the accurate information, and ensure that every resident can actively take part to the democratic service. I urge all of you to support this motion and build a more inclusive and representative community. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalisa. Councillor Gabriel, you want to sum up, please?
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for supporting this motion. I'm overwhelmed for the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we vote on the motion, please? All in favor? I think that's passed. No need to ask any more questions. Thank you. Watford Borough Council stand with Ukraine. This motion has been proposed by Councillor Penn and seconded by Councillor Aga. I now invite Councillor Penn to move the motion. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Russia invaded Ukraine over 3 years ago, and soon after, the UK opened its Home for Ukrainian sponsorship scheme, and thousands of refugees travelled to the UK. My husband and I are one of the families who sponsored someone, and I know that other people in this room have either been hosts or are currently hosting people. The person we host is the reason that I want to bring this motion to Watford Council tonight. My friend is from a town near the Russian border. It is somewhere that continues to be bombed with civilians being killed, has Russian troops advancing on the ground nearby, and has experienced limited electricity and heating during each winter since the war began. Her mother and grandmother have remained in her hometown, and she hasn't seen them in nearly 3 years. My friend has become someone that my family cares about very deeply, and over time has shared with us what has been happening in her hometown. She has shared videos of bombed buildings and destroyed streets. She hopes that one day we might be able to go and visit her hometown, but it might not be recognisable as the place where she grew up. Since we proposed this motion, the political landscape has changed significantly. President Trump has said that Ukraine is more difficult to deal with than Russia, following an exchange in the White House where he described President Zelensky as being disrespectful to the USA. The USA then paused all its military aid and intelligence sharing with Kyiv. And actually, since we've been in this meeting, that has now been reversed, which is really wonderful to hear. The UK and France have said they'd be willing to send troops to uphold a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia as part of a coalition of the willing. Labour has committed to an increase in defence spending, something which the Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey has been calling for. The EU has committed to borrowing 150 billion for military expenditure. Peace talks taking place between the US and Ukraine today in Jeddah have actually yielded some quite positive results, and the Ukrainian president has said that he is open to a 30-day ceasefire, but it's unclear whether Russia will agree to that. There is still little movement, however, on the use of frozen Russian assets, again, something that the Liberal Democrats are calling for. And as reported in the BBC News on the 8th of March, there seems to be no meetings between Labour ministers and the foundation set up to oversee these funds. As a town, Watford has embraced Ukrainians and continues to provide ongoing support. It is heartening to see the council, charities and private individuals offering to support people displaced by this brutal and illegal war. I want to make sure that anyone who has made Watford their home knows that we condemn what the USA senior political leaders have said about this war. I received an email from a local resident recently saying that councillors have a proud tradition of standing up for peace and justice. I've taken that to heart and believe that as local elected representatives of our community, we should do exactly that. I am proud to be a Liberal Democrat and support the position that our party has taken and what we are asking for tonight. I do hope that you will all support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penn. Councillor Aga, would you like to second and speak?
Chairwoman, I reserve my right to speak for now.
Thank you. Does anyone else, any amendment? I sure not. Anyone would like to speak? Okay, let's get them. Councillor Mark, Councillor Sahel, Councillor Ian, Councillor Rabi. Anyone else? Councillor Mark, Councillor Sahel, Councillor Ian, Councillor Rabi. Have I missed anyone? No. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Mark, start to.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for that. I want to share my strong support for the motion. It's one that speaks to our shared values of justice, freedom and solidarity. As Liberal Democrats, we are committed to these principles, and I believe that this motion reflects not just our responsibility, but our moral duty to support the people of Ukraine in the ongoing fight against the illegal and barbaric actions of Vladimir Putin's regime. We're living in a time of immense geopolitical tension, and we must not shy away from acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Despite the unimaginable hardship they faced, Ukrainians have fought to protect their democracy, their sovereignty, their dignity and their way of life. This motion expresses solidarity with the Ukrainian people, including many Ukrainian refugees who have found a safe haven here in Watford. We stand with these families and we will continue to offer them our help during this heartbreaking period. However, the scale of this crisis demands more than local action. It calls for a strong, unified response at the national and international levels. Ukraine is a country rich in resources, including vast reserves of rare earth minerals, fertile agricultural land, a burgeoning energy sector, and key industries in mining and manufacturing. The potential value of Ukraine's natural resources alone has been estimated at over $6 trillion. But there is a dark reality behind its riches. Those resources will be looted and exploited by the Russian state if Ukraine is not given the support it needs to defend itself. These resources, which have been the foundation for Ukraine's prosperity and future, are at risk of being seized by Putin's regime, just as Russia has been looting territories it occupies in Ukraine. The reality is that any victory for Putin in this conflict will allow him to use Ukraine's vast wealth to further fuel his brutal military machine. The frozen Russian assets should be used to stop this from happening and to ensure that Ukraine's resources are not siphoned off to strengthen Russia's military capabilities, which have long been invested in military technology and expansionist aims. This is not a new doctrine. It spans back centuries, from the Tsars to the Soviet Union and now the current bloody Putin dictatorship. Russia's expansionist ambitions have remained unchanged. This conflict is just the latest chapter in the history of westward aggression. Putin's criminal war machine has been fueled by oil and gas exports, which have given Russia the financial power to wage war. And this brings me to a critical point. Despite the efforts of Europe dependent on Russian fossil fuels, the reality is that, according to a report marking the third anniversary of the invasion, the US spent more money on Russian oil and gas than on financial aid to Ukraine. In the third year of this war, EU member states bought £18 billion worth of Russian fossil fuels, according to the Centre for Research on Energy and Clean Air. This is greater than the £16 billion the EU allocated to Ukraine in financial aid in 2024, according to a tracker from Kiel Institute for the World Economy. This stark imbalance cannot continue. Every euro spent on Russian energy is a euro that contributes to Putin's war chest and prolongs the suffering of the Ukrainian people. We must urgently accelerate this transition to renewable energy to reduce our dependence on Russian fossil fuels and ensure that Putin's war machine is no longer fueled by British or European money. Moreover, the Korea report further highlights the scale of Russia's financial power derived from fossil fuel exports. Russia earned €242 billion from global fossil fuel exports in the third year of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And these revenues, which continue to flow despite the sanctions, are now inching closer to the trillion euro figure since the war began in 2022. This shows that Russia's debt into sanctions and its fossil fuel industry remains a key enabler for Putin's war machine. In fact, Russia derives half of its tax revenues from oil and gas sector. This makes clear that any continued trade in Russian energy is financing Putin's aggression and expansionist ambitions of his brutal dictatorship. But let's not forget that Ukraine's struggle is part of a much broader regional issue. Sweden today declared that Russia poses the biggest threat to its security. The same is true for many other European nations, Poland, Finland, the Baltic states, and countries across the Balkans, all of whom feel directly threatened by Putin's Russia. The security of these communities, and indeed all of Europe, is intertwined with Ukraine's success. When Ukraine stands strong, Europe stands strong. Please support motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mark. Councillor Sahel.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I support this motion and thank this council's lead in providing homes for Ukrainian families here in Watford, and including commendably my colleague Ian Stotesbury and I've just learned that Councillor Hill as well, so thank you for what you're doing. In addition, also thank the Council for providing the wide-ranging social support that we've been providing to local Ukrainian families here in Watford. Colleagues, President Volodymyr Zelensky is not a dictator. He is a brave, courageous, principled and democratically elected wartime leader of a sovereign country which has been brutally attacked by its aggressive neighbour, Russia, led by a tyrant called Putin, who has no respect for international law or the international rules-based world order, who only has expansionist and destabilizing vision for the region. Sadly, Ukraine has suffered immensely at the hands of the Russian aggression for a long period of time, not least in 2014, when it was brutally attacked and forcibly part of its territory, an integral part of its territory, namely the Crimea, was taken by Russia. If that wasn't enough to satiate his expansionist vision to repeat this bully boy aggression again, he, without provocation, launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and currently holds some 20% of its territory, killed many hundreds of thousands of soldiers and many thousands of civilians, including children, bombed to smithereens vital civilian infrastructure, and created a huge refugee crisis in neighbouring European countries and nearly crippled the world economy. He cannot and must not be appeased. We all want the war to end, the bloodshed and killing to stop. But significantly, peace in Ukraine must be peace with justice. Peace in Ukraine must only be with guaranteed security for Ukraine's territorial integrity. I commend the support and leadership of the European leaders on this issue, and more recently the direction and tone set by our own Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, specifically as regards the use of frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. Now, I absolutely deplore the intimidatory, coercive, pressuring and bully boy tactics of this US administration. They are, well, certainly President Trump is in no way able to lecture us on peace, given his comments he's made in regards to the Middle East. I support this motion and thank again the Council and my colleagues for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sahel. Councillor Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very quick, as lots have been said already. Indeed, I am fortunate to be in a position where my wife and I are able to host a Ukrainian family here in the UK. We've had them with us for 2 years. They are part of the family. They're also very useful to have around when my baby is crying and we need more help. But on a serious note, I mean, they are integral to our lives, but also Ukraine's future is now integral, I think, to Europe's future too. It's a huge tragedy that the USA's rhetoric has shifted to supporting a despot, as my colleague has just said, who suppresses his own political opposition, who suppresses free media, whose agents' activities are present around the world. And then, of course, President Trump chose to call his opponent a dictator. It's truly abhorrent. Some key principles in the peace negotiations that are hopefully negotiated should be remembered. The right of Ukraine as a sovereign country to make up its own national security provisions. If it wants to join NATO, it should be able to join NATO. NATO is a defensive alliance, a defensive treaty, and that should not be withheld from them by bullying tactics from the White House and from the Kremlin. Ukraine should be treated as the victim, not the aggressor. The reparations that reportedly the Trump's White House were planning to levy on Ukraine would have outstripped those placed on Germany after the First World War. We cannot accept that. That is not justice. It's not fairness. If anything, we should be talking earnestly about how the Western world and the wider world will be looking at rebuilding Ukraine for its future. I also believe that Britain should see its role on the world stage to help the world's most vulnerable, and it would be criminal and short-sighted for our own national interests and our own morality to cut foreign aid, as we've seen out of the White House in the form of USA aid. Now, sadly, there are reports that the British government will be doing that as well, as in part of the way to levy the defence spending. We welcome increasing defence spending, but we really urge government to look to the world's most vulnerable, to look at Britain's place in the world as a moral leader, and to look at other ways of raising sufficient funds, including rearmament banks and similar. But I welcome this motion as a whole and hope Council will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Aga, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleague said a lot about the conflict right now and the war, what is happening. What I want to highlight the importance of the legislation, what currently is a big question mark for all Ukrainian families who living across UK. As we know, Watford is one of many where they're facing significant uncertainty in the 3 years visa approach expiration. Initially, they have been granted under the scheme such as Homes for Ukrainian Sponsorship Program, and now the visa are set to start expiring from now. The UK government has introduced an 18-month visa extension through the Ukrainian Permission Extension Scheme. However, the application process is complex and they can only be initiated 28 days before the current visa expire. This limited time frame has led to difficulties for all families securing the stable employment and housing, as employers and landlords feel very insecure and do not wish to engage when individuals whose legal status is uncertain. This uncertainty surrounded around the visa extension has also affected refugees' ability to renew tenancy agreement, increase the risk of homelessness. Additionally, many are unable to find stable employment due to the concerns about their temporary status. Many refugees cannot return to Ukraine due to ongoing conflict, as we discussed already. And to add that uncertainty around the legal status is a big challenge for all families and mostly women and children. So Ukrainian refugees, they also facing the loss of the jobs and homes as mentioned before. Watford, as many towns and cities in East England, have Ukrainian families, and as a town working very closely with all partners across it, not only the locally but also county level. Since we welcomed the Ukrainian families, we met with other stakeholders on a weekly and a monthly basis to making sure that we coordinated all responses to those who are arriving to our town as a guest. We hosted online appeal pages in 2022, raising around £6,000, which has been passed to Goods for Goods, a local charity which helped send the goods one to Poland and Moldova. We facilitated donation at the Holywell Community Centre from the public in Watford. We did so many good things, and tonight is one additional thing what we need to help Ukrainian families in Watford to stand behind them and show our support. I'm pleased to say that I'm the patron of the Sunflower Social Club, who bringing every week women and children who singing and playing beautiful music, encouraging and simulating with the community in Watford. It's such beautiful to see all of them. We can't just leave them right now. I urge everyone to support this motion and stand behind all Ukrainians as we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aga. Councillor Rabi, can you speak?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'll get straight off my thunder. Well, one of the things I was going to do was congratulate and thank Aga for taking on the role of the ambassador for the social club. I'm not a spokesman for them, but I work very closely with them, and I know that they really appreciate that you've taken that on. Much of what I wanted to say has been said, but I think the council really can do two things. One, pat itself on its back for what it's done so far in terms of getting the community behind this terrible, terrible project, which we are all glad to support. But I think there's more we can do, Chairwoman. There are lessons coming out every day. I mentioned one of those in my question to the mayor earlier on. There's so much going on in this field out there that we, the council, don't really know about. So what I'm going to urge the mayor and Aga as ambassador to actually get the case studies that have gone on. Let's look at them and let's help the Ukrainians even more. As far as the politics goes, I think it would be remiss of me not to commend what Keir Starmer is doing. The Prime Minister is actually doing as much as he can in terms of putting up a fight. Not enough, but I think we need to show appreciation when he does it, but use that as a lever to say, not enough. We need you to do more. We need you to be bolder. And that way we'll move this dial. But yes, the council is with Ukraine. England is with Ukraine. Let's learn the lessons and let's promise them even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robbie. Councillor Penn, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just want to say thank you to Councillor Dighton for seconding this and to Councillors Hoffman, Bashir, Stokesbury and Martins for their contributions. All my colleagues have spoken very passionately about this, and I think it just shows the complexity of topics that are all interrelated, both in international politics, but also how Ukrainian refugees are supported both here and across the UK. As with many things, this goes far beyond anything we could possibly expect as a local council, but I sincerely hope that our MP is watching today and recognises that this is an issue that a lot of people in Watford are very passionate about and takes that forward in every way he can in his role in Westminster. But in conclusion, I do just hope that you can all support this motion this evening so that we can do what we can as a local council to show that we do stand with Ukrainians. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel, your microphone is on. Does that mean you want to speak?
Yeah, I put up before I wanted to speak.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
It's too late, fair enough.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Just be short, please.
okay, thanks. Very kind of you. It's a serious subject, so I'll put up with Councillor Bashir. Yeah, I want to just thank those who brought, the people who brought the motion tonight. It's very important, very serious. We fully support what you've done, especially obviously over Ukraine. I think we're all shocked what happened 3 years ago and what Putin's done. I mean, it's obviously, as we all say, things are fast moving. It's thankful, luckily, despite the terrible rhetoric from Trump and the Americans, that they have obviously announced tonight that they are going to resume some sort of military support. But certainly they're saying they're going to resume the intelligence support, which is, thank goodness, which came today. And obviously it's been that 30-day ceasefire that President Zelensky's proposed today as well. So hopefully that's now putting the pressure on Putin, who obviously is a dictator, as everyone says. Now, obviously there's so many details on this, but on the Homes for Ukraine scheme, yeah, we fully support that. And obviously we will be pushing for extending the visa beyond the visa scheme, beyond the 18 months to 3 years or whatever, to actually look at that. On the freezing of the assets, I know that the Foreign Secretary behind the scenes, they are talking about this. And like a lot of things, you're treading the fine line. And it's the same as with the Chelsea Football Club, the $2 billion there, the assets. So there are things being done behind the scenes. But as with what Keir Starmer's done over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's treading the fine line. It's very, very difficult. But he's actually, I think, done as best he could in trying to. It'd be very easy to reply to everything that Trump comes out with in his over-the-top nasty rhetoric. He's had to try and, tread that line, go over there. Something else might come the next day. But I think, being the statesman, you have to try and step back from that. And I think that's what he's tried to do, working with the French and working with the Europeans. So that's good. So overall, I think there's going to be more on this. But overall, we do support it. I know, obviously, you're going to try to amend it to live them on this. But I mean, fair enough. Overall, we support the Ukrainians and the whole policy. It's terrible what's happened in the last 3 years. We hope with the quiet, careful diplomacy of the present government, supported by the Liberal Democrats in the House of Commons, that we'll finally get somewhere and we'll help the Ukrainians. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Penn, sum up, please.
I won't repeat myself, so thank you. I hope Labour can therefore support this, and I am delighted that the slight wording about the Liberal Democrats doesn't put you off, because I think my Councillor Bashir sitting next to me has pointed out that Sir Ed Davey has been really calling for a lot of the right things at the moment, and it's fantastic the Labour government following some of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's vote on the motion, please. Anyone in favour? Okay, that's carried. Don't need to ask any more questions. Thank you. Hertfordshire bus service. The final motion has been proposed by Councillor Ian and second by Councillor Penn. I'll now invite Councillor Ian to move the motion. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you. I will not take 7 minutes. We discussed bus transport here before, and with the county elections upcoming and the anticipated government spending review, we felt it was important to clearly lay out this council's position, which is public transport should be a priority of both the county council and the government going forward. And in the case of buses, a franchise model would benefit our residents. You can see in the motion, there's details in there, the scale to which our bus networks have struggled, both across Hertfordshire and across the UK. Bus mileage in Hertfordshire fell by over 50% between 2017 and 2022, and in a similar time frame, we saw a 14% decrease in local services across the country. Compounding that trajectory, we've now unfortunately seen that the fare cap on buses has increased by 50% since the Labour government took control in July last year. It's imperative that residents have the choice of a fully fledged bus network when making their transport plans. It would benefit all of us, not just bus users. It grants independence to young people and those people less able to travel independently. It helps mitigate congestion across the road network and for other road users and congestion for other road users too. It connects our towns and our businesses, but most of all, it provides options for those worst off who can't afford to travel by car, which is more important than ever given the still deepening cost of living crisis. The County Council has not done enough to prevent this decline in the services, and government and the County Council will need to step forward and grasp the issue with two hands. We would like to see the government support a franchise model across the County Council, and the County Council to take that forward as quickly as possible to serve our residents. We'd also like to see the government reverse the decision to increase the fare cap from £2 to £3, a decision that is unfortunately inherently regressive. I'm sure everyone, like everyone here, you've had many discussions with local residents who find the network too unreliable, too infrequent, and now increasingly costly. This stops them choosing bus as their mode of transport. Worst of all, I've met residents who have waited far too long for a service to come because they had no alternative transportation, they can't afford alternative transportation, and then the service is cancelled or severely delayed. They deserve so much better. We think a franchise model can do that. I look forward to the debate and urge you all to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Penn, like to second and speak, please?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Stokesbury has done a thorough job of outlining why this is such an important issue. Listening to this, I think we can all agree there's been egregious underfunding from the Conservative-led County Council, leading to a lack of appropriate services for Watford residents. According to the Campaign for Better Transport, HTC reduced funding from 6.4 million to 1.7 million between 2010 and 2017. That represents a 74% cut. HTC has also not spent 5 million of the budget available to improve services, which were in this year's budget. There is another 11 million in the budget for next year, so it is unclear why this has not been spent. This has been challenged by our Lib Dem colleagues at County, but it shows a real lack of understanding of the needs of Hertfordshire residents. This is a national trend. Local bus services have shrunk by an estimated 14% nationally between 2016-17 and 2021-22, as Councillor Stokesbury said. Even today, there was an announcement that buses run by Interlink from Hemel Hempstead will have changed frequencies. 3 of these services do travel through Watford, so will have a demonstrable impact on our residents. When I speak to residents across Watford, they complain about the bus services. Most recently, this was from an elderly resident who was struggling to get to any of her medical appointments. In my ward on the Canterbury estate, there are only a handful of buses a day. Some used to drive through the estate, but now only go on to Hempstead Road. One lady did tell me that she actually can't walk that far, so she is no longer able to access local businesses that are available in our area. It should simply not be this difficult for our community to reach vital appointments and to use our town's resources. I do hope everyone will support our residents and advocate for better local buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penn. Does anybody would like to do any amendment to this? I'm taking no. Would anyone like to speak on the motion, please? No? Councillor Nigel? Anyone else? Councillor Nigel. Okay, Councillor Nigel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Can I again welcome this? But in fact, funny enough, we had the same sort of motion that my colleague, Councillor Khan, put forward at the county last year, wasn't it? I think Councillor Williams will remember that. And in fact, I remember Councillor Williams talking about the bus service at the time as well. And it has been deprived of over 40 years, really, since bus privatisation. In fact, today, just today wrote to Ariba because they're deciding to cut the service of 322, which comes across from Hemel Hempstead through the town and to the Hollywood estate. And they're cutting at least 1 or 2 buses an hour out. So that's going to affect residents who go to and from the Hollywood estate, and obviously very near the hospital. So again, that's going to affect residents again. So yeah, we fully support this. You mentioned the cap. Well, of course, the previous government left that on a cliff edge. There was not a lot we could do on that. So yeah, something we'll be looking at. The government will be looking at in the future about bus fares. But other than that, yeah, I mean, the key thing is the franchise. And that's what the government can do. And we're pushing the government to be able to give the power either to the county council or whatever new form of government we have in the next few years, so that there can be proper franchise, so that as in the metro mayors in the north and places like that, where they have real powers over transport, if we can have that down here, maybe not in, even if we kept Watford stayed, not in someone like Watford, it wouldn't be, but yeah, in whatever new authority is created, if they had the kind of powers over public transport and over buses, that would be ideal. So that's the sort of thing we'd look forward. But that's going to be in a few years' time. But yeah, overall, obviously, we support.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Ian, would you like to sum up?
Not at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we vote on the motion, please? Everyone in favour? I would imagine so. That's carried. Thank you. That concludes the meeting. This is my last meeting, so I just want to thank everyone tonight for their cooperation over the year, and also I just want to thank the officers, the council officers, for their support. I know I've got a couple of months, but because of the last meeting, I'm going to take the opportunity thanking them, especially Ellen, Sandra. Yeah, she's done that, for all their support. And I'm going to call these guys, my team, who comfort me through the meeting to make sure I keep calm. And, you know, overall, I want to thank my peers that voted me to put me in this position to make history, to be the first Black chairwoman in Watford. I also want to thank a few people. I want to thank the mayor for making this happen in his ear, and Donna Nolan in her ear of being in the council. I want to thank Kennedy and Glenn for always encouraging me. Tasha, she's not here, to always encourage me that you can do it and you must do it. I've also want to give thanks to my family, especially my daughter, who encouraged me to take on this role. So I really appreciate everybody's support, and I appreciate my family. I appreciate the mayor, Donna Nolan. I'm so proud of them to make sure this happened, to be the first Black chairwoman in the borough. So well done to you too, basically. Thank you.